All right, this is part 1 of Unit 9. Before we get started, I just want to remind you that you can stop the video at any time. You can go back and listen to or see things a second time as you need to. And also, please remember, you need to watch the videos all the way through. They walk you through everything you're supposed to do, and this is providing the instruction for you. So please don't try to skip over or jump ahead of things. Just go right through the video straight through. All right? So start by turning to your score sheet, and will you please make sure you've got your name and hour up on the blanks provided. And then you should already have these first 2 assignments written in. If you don't, do it now. And I want you to check if either of these assignments are not finished yet. Please stop the video right now, finish them, and get stamps before moving on. If you have these done, but you still need the stamps, please stop the video and get the stamps before moving on. If you have both stamps, please proceed. Go to your table of contents, and you'll notice as you look at this that I do not have the dates written in. I'd like you to look up at the whiteboard and notice the date and write today's date in on your table of contents. We'll be using pages 4 and 5. And then turn to page 5, and this is where we're going to start talking about infectious disease. So please make sure your name's at the top of the page. And this unit is called infectious disease. So let's start by defining those terms. The word disease means a condition of ill health. One or more of your body parts aren't functioning properly. And if you actually take that word disease and break it into 2 parts, you will see that that actually really kind of is a good name for that. Dis means not. Ease means easy or comfortable. So that would certainly fit with what a disease is. Now, the word infectious, when used with the word disease, is talking about something that can be caught from another organism. We might use the word contagious to describe this as well. Not all disease is infectious. We have different kinds of disease. So if you look at the flow chart that you have next, we're going to talk about 4 main causes of disease. The first one we learned about earlier this year, and that is your genetics. There are some diseases that are tied to genetics. They are tied to your DNA. And those are ones that are not contagious because they are inherited from your parents. They're in your DNA. You're not catching them. They're not contagious. Some examples would be Tay-Sachs or hemophilia. There's lots of other ones. You might, if you did any research on a genetic disorder when you were in the genetics unit, you would have come across some other genetic diseases. We have diseases that are caused by environmental factors. Now, when we say that, we don't mean you caught them from nature. We mean that you've developed a disease because you've been exposed to something in your environment, like the air quality or the water or maybe chemicals in your food or something like that would be an example of a disease caused by environmental factors. So examples would be like lung disease from pollution or smoking. That would be an example of an environmental factor. A third category is when we get diseases from germs, and these are definitely infectious. Germs are microscopic things that cause disease, and specifically we're looking at bacteria and viruses. That's going to be the main focus of the unit that we have right here. And then the last category would also be considered infectious, and that's disease that is from parasites. And so that's when one organism, which is the parasite, is feeding on or living on or in another, which is the host. And so we can see parasites that are fungus, that are protists, that are animals, that are plants. And this would be considered infectious as well. All right, so now we're going to go over to page 4 and look a little bit about diseases spreading and look at them in sort of a historical context. So when you get to page 4, please make sure your name is at the top of the page. And you have these 2 terms here, epidemic and pandemic. Let's start by defining those. The word epidemic, go ahead and write this on your page. The word epidemic means the rapid spread of a disease in a defined area. So when we say defined area, that might mean the state of Minnesota. That might mean Woodbury Middle School. That might mean the United States. It's us looking at a specific area and noticing that there is a disease that is spreading very quickly. This winter, you might have heard a lot of talk about the influenza epidemic going on in Minnesota because of the number of cases of influenza that came up this year. Now, what makes a pandemic different, because you'll notice they're similar words, but pandemic has a slight difference, and that is that we are talking about this rapid worldwide spread of a disease, not just in a defined area, not just in our state, not just in our county, but throughout the whole world. When an epidemic reaches that level, now we call it a pandemic. So, you're going to watch a video in a few minutes here about pandemics. And this video will help show you a little bit what a pandemic is, what are some examples of them, and some specific stories in history where these have happened. As you are watching the video, I want you to fill up these bullet points with information about pandemics. It can be general information about a pandemic. It also can be specific about some of the ones they're going to feature. For instance, they are going to specifically feature the influenza pandemic that happened during World War I. And you might think back to learning about that in social studies this year and learning about the flu and the impact that had on World War I and how it was in fact kind of caused by World War I. All right. So that's what you're going to do as you watch this video. This is the end of part 1. The video will be at the beginning of part 2.